Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking through a couple player props I like on Prizepicks for this week's NFL slate for week 11. Now for this video, we're going to be focusing on the Sunday slate, so all the games that are happening on Sunday. I'm going to give out 3 props I like for this Sunday slate. I do typically make videos for the primetime games, like Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football, but obviously for this video, we're just going to be focusing on the main slate of games on Sunday. So we're going to talk through the 3 plays I do like for this week, 3 early props I'm liking. I am recording this video on Saturday morning, so these are kind of some early props I'm liking. I'll be sharing some more NFL Prizepicks plays this week over on Patreon. I'll post those later Saturday night. So if you guys want more Prizepicks plays from me, not only do I provide NFL Prizepicks plays on Patreon, I'll also give out NBA Prizepicks plays as well. Check that out, linked down below in the description if you are interested. But before we talk through this week's plays, if you guys enjoy these Prizepicks videos, make sure you hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet, and if you guys are new to the channel and if you don't have an account on Prizepicks, you can sign up for Prizepicks using my promo code Noah, linked down below in the description, or just when you sign up for Prizepicks, use that code, you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. So make sure to check out Prizepicks if you have not yet. Also, do want to give a quick shout out to Sleeper, because we do also have a partnership with Sleeper, and if you guys don't have an account over on Sleeper, you can sign up for Sleeper as well using promo code Noah and get your first deposit matched up to $100 over there. Now, if you don't know what Sleeper is, they're an app very similar to Prizepicks and a lot of these other DFS pick'em apps that you see around the industry. But Sleeper does offer some cooler things that some of these other sites don't offer. So on Sleeper, you can win up to 100x your money. If you're one of those people that really likes to chase those high payouts, you can do that over on Sleeper. You can win up to 100x your money. Also, Sleeper is offering free squares for all new users. So when you sign up, make a deposit, use that promo code Noah, you'll automatically get some free squares added to your account that you can use in any entries you like. And Sleeper does do a lot of discounts throughout the week as well. They typically do discounts on every Wednesday and every Sunday. So if you check the board on Sleeper Sunday, usually around like 11 a.m. Eastern time, a couple hours before the first games kick off, there's typically a couple discounts you can take advantage of. So you guys definitely want to be playing over on Sleeper. And again, if you don't have an account on Sleeper yet, sign up, use that promo code Noah, and you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. But let's go ahead and talk through this Prizepicks slate, guys. 3 props I'm liking over on Prizepicks this week. 2 fantasy scores that I'm looking at, and then a receptions prop that I like for this week. So for fantasy score, the first prop I want to take a look at is going to be Austin Ekeler's fantasy score of 16.5, and I like the over here for Ekeler. I think this line on Ekeler is definitely a bit too low, just with how Ekeler is utilized all throughout. And if we take a look at kind of his props individually this week, so his rush yards prop is set at 49.5. Let's just say 50 rush yards. His receiving yards prop is set at 34.5. So let's say 35 rush yards. So right there, or 35 receiving yards. So right there, he's basically projected for 8.5 fantasy points just from yards alone. Then you have to think about receptions. I haven't looked at his receptions prop this week. I'd assume it's around 4.5, 5. So he probably projects for like 4 or 5 receptions. That's an additional 4 or 5 points. And then you have to think about touchdown potential. I mean, Ekeler is a pretty good bet to score a touchdown. I think he's already scored like 3 touchdowns this season. I think he scored a touchdown. He scored 3 touchdowns in their last 2 games, or actually 4 touchdowns in their last 3 games. So he scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. He has a ton of touchdown equity. I don't like betting on touchdowns, but obviously when you take an over on fantasy score, you kind of want the touchdowns. But that the touchdown equity is already baked into this line. But I like fantasy score most here for Ekeler just because he can get you yards, he can get you receptions, and those points just all add up. Whereas obviously if you take a touchdown prop, I don't think this is a bad bet by any means. I think Ekeler does have pretty good odds to score a touchdown this week. But if you take an over on a touchdown prop, you need a touchdown. Whereas with fantasy score, there's definitely a chance that Ekeler could get over this fantasy score line without a TD. He could have a really good game on the ground. He could catch a ton of passes. There's just so many more outs with fantasy score. And I think this line of 16.5 on Ekeler is a bit too low. He has cleared this line in 4 out of 6 games this season. The 2 games he didn't clear this line were both kind of tougher matchups against Dallas, one of the best defenses, one of the best run defenses, and then on the road in Kansas City, he had a tough outing. But last 3 weeks against the Bears, against the Jets, against the Bears, Jets, and Lions, 23.3, 21, and 21.5 fantasy points for Austin Ekeler. I mean, Austin Ekeler is a super valuable fantasy running back just because he can do so much when he's on the field, scoring, or scoring touchdowns, catching passes, getting rushing yards. Like, he just gets a ton of volume. And if you look at his snap counts lately, like, he's actually been playing a good amount of snaps. We saw kind of last season, Eckler was kind of like in a somewhat of a timeshare with Josh Kelly, but that really hasn't been the case this season. You look at the last 5 weeks, 68%, 63%, 67%, 67%, and 69% of the snaps for Austin Eckler. And if you look at the volume he had in those weeks, just like the last 5 games, 14 carries and last 4 games, 14 carries and a reception, 15 carries and 7 receptions, 14 carries and 2 receptions, 19 carries and 4 receptions. So he's getting just a ton of volume on the ground. He's had at least 7 targets in 3 straight games, so he's getting a ton of opportunity in the air as well. And this is a matchup that I think he can have success in against the Packers. The Packers have been beatable against opposing running backs this season. They are giving up the 8th most fantasy points to running backs. They've allowed 8 rushing touchdowns this season. So I think the matchup here is pretty solid for Eckler. Volume's going to be there. We know that. At 16.5 fantasy score, he can go over this line just from volume alone. But obviously, we want him to get into the end zone. We want him to score fantasy points, that way. But there's just so many ways he can get there with, receptions, receiving yards, stuff like that. So 16.5 fantasy points, fantasy score for Austin Eckler. I do like the over here. I think this line could probably be around like 17.5, 18.5. I think 16.5 is a bit too low. So that's the first prop I like this week. Next prop we're going to look at, another fantasy score. We're going to go to Jerome Ford, 10 fantasy score. Also like the over here as well. So if you look at Jerome Ford's game log lately, he has cleared this line in 4 out of his last 5 games. And ever since the Nick Chubb injury, I think that injury occurred in week 2, Ford has cleared this line in, I believe, 6 out of his last 8 games. Yeah, 6 out of his last 8 games he has gone over this fantasy score line. Those are games without Chubb. That includes the game against Pittsburgh that Chubb got injured in. But last 8 games without Nick Chubb. 24.1 fantasy points, 19.1, 9.5, 11.1, 17.4, 4.9, 12.7, and 11.9. So again, 6 out of his last 8 games, he's had at least 10 fantasy points. The volume has been pretty good for Jerome Ford. He's been used as their RB1. They have been involving Kareem Hunt as well. They did pick up Kareem Hunt after the Nick Chubb injury, and Kareem Hunt has been involved. But Ford has still been leading the team in snaps. The last 2 weeks, he's played 64% of the snaps. Kareem Hunt has played just 29 and 36% of the snaps. Pierre Strong occasionally will get some snaps, but like last week, Pierre Strong didn't play. So it's pretty much going to be a split between Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, with Ford being the RB1, kind of the lead guy, Hunt kind of being the guy that'll spell him, and when he's tired on passing situations, they'll probably bring in Kareem Hunt. But if you look at Ford this season, in the games without Nick Chubb, like, not only has the volume been really good, but he's also been getting opportunity in the passing game. I didn't think Jerome Ford was going to be a guy that they were going to use a ton in the passing game. I figured that would be Kareem Hunt's role. But like in the games without Chubb, 3 targets, 6 targets, 2 targets, 4 targets, 2, 7, 1. And if you look at the game they played earlier this season, so on October the 1st against Baltimore, Jerome Ford did not go over this fantasy score line. He had just 9.5 fantasy points. He came up just short. But that was a game the Browns lost 3-28. For one, it was a very tough spot. They had to go on the road to face a really good Ravens defense. The only reason I bring that game up is because that was a game that they started Dorian Thompson-Robinson earlier this season. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson is starting on Sunday. He's going to start moving forward with Deshaun Watson out. And I think DTR starting at quarterback might be a good thing for Jerome Ford, because I just don't think they have a ton of confidence in DTR. I don't know if they really want him throwing the ball a ton. So I think this is definitely a spot where the Browns will probably be leaning on their running game. And if you look at the game that he did play with DTR, he wasn't very efficient on the ground. He had just 9 carries for 26 yards. Again, really tough spot against a good Ravens defense. But DTR was targeting him a lot in the passing game. 6 targets, 5 catches for 19 yards. And that kind of makes sense, because I think these younger rookie quarterbacks, they're going to look for those checkdowns. They don't really want to throw the ball deep. They're probably maybe a little bit scared to throw the ball deep. So they're going to look for those checkdowns. And in the game he played with DTR, Jerome Ford did get 6 targets. Am I expecting 6 targets this Sunday? Obviously not. But if there's that opportunity, that's only going to be better for Jerome Ford's fantasy value and his fantasy upside, because if he can catch passes to go along with the whatever 12, 13, 14 carries he's going to get, I think he's got a pretty good chance at 10 fantasy score. This is a pretty decent spot at home against the Steelers. The Steelers defense overall is pretty good, but they have been vulnerable against the run this season. The Steelers are giving up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs. They're giving up the 6th most rushing yards to running backs. So I don't think the spot's like that terrible for Jerome Ford. I think the volume's definitely going to be there. We're really betting on volume here, and if we're going to see 15, 16 touches for Jerome Ford, 12, 13, 14 carries, and maybe a couple targets, he's got a pretty good chance of getting at least 10 fantasy points. And if you look at Jerome Ford's game log, the last 5 games, he has not scored a touchdown in 5 straight games. Whereas on the other hand, Kareem Hunt has scored a touchdown in 5 straight games. Like, you would think at some point, especially since Jerome Ford is getting more snaps than Kareem Hunt, you would think at some point Jerome Ford's going to be the one scoring those touchdowns and not Kareem Hunt. Obviously, at 10 fantasy score and with this line at 10, we don't need a touchdown from Jerome Ford. I mean, he's been able to go over this line without getting into the end zone. But if he does find the end zone, we're going to be sitting pretty good. So, yeah, 10 fantasy score for Jerome Ford, like the over here. And I was looking at Sleeper. They do have fantasy score lines as well. They actually had their line on Jerome Ford right now set at 12.5. So they're much higher on Jerome Ford than Prizepicks is. I think Prizepicks is under projecting Ford a little bit here. I think this line should probably be at like 11, 11.5. I definitely think 10 is a bit too low. So that's the second play I like for this week. And then third and final play I like is going to be a receptions prop. We're going to look at Tyreek Hill's receptions prop of 6.5. And I like the over here as well. So more than 6.5 receptions for Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek Hill, he's been a target monster this season. If you look at the volume he's had, I mean, the volume has been absurd. He's seeing 10 plus targets a game, at least 10 targets in 4 straight games, at least 7 receptions in 4 out of his last 5 games. He's gone over this line, I believe, in 6 out of 8 games this season. There's only been 2 games this season where Hill has not had, 6 out of 9 games this season. So there's only been 3 games this season where he has not had at least 7 receptions. So he's cleared this line in a large majority of the Dolphins games this season. The volume's been great, leading the team in target share, 31% target share. And he projects for 10 targets on Prizepicks. If you look at his prop on Prizepicks right now, his target prop, that line is set at 10. If we're projecting Hill for 10 targets, I think he's got a pretty good chance at 7 receptions, because if you look at this season in the games he's had at least 10 targets, he's had at least 10 targets in 6 games this season. In those 6 games, he's had at least 7 receptions in 5 out of 6. In the one game he did not get 7 receptions, he had 6. So with Prizepicks projecting Hill for 10 targets, I think there's a pretty good chance we can get 7 receptions from Hill if he does get 10 targets. The only concern I have is that right now the Dolphins are playing at home and they're favored by 13.5 in this game. So this game does have some, I guess, potential blowout risk. But in the NFL, you typically don't see starters come out of the game unless it's like a big blowout. Like the Dolphins would have to be up by like 4 or 5 touchdowns for Hill to really for him to come out of the game like in the 4th quarter. So we don't really have to worry about that too much. I guess the only thing we have to worry about is that the Dolphins just they get a big lead and then they kind of like abandon the pass. But so far this season they really haven't been playing that way. Like, even if the Dolphins do get a lead, they're still out there gunning it. Tua's still out there throwing it a ton, and Tua is going to target Tyreek Hill a ton. He's going to target him mainly. He's got like over 31% target share this season, one of the highest target shares in the league. Again, if we're getting if we're going to see 10 plus targets for Tyreek Hill, I think he's got a pretty good chance at 7 receptions. And on DK Sportsbook right now, they do have Hill as a favorite, minus 120 to go over this line. I like this play quite a bit, more than 6.5 receptions for Tyreek Hill. So these are 3 props, guys, I like for this week's NFL slate. If you guys are going to be tailing me on these 3 plays, hopefully we can cash out, make some money this week. As always, appreciate you guys watching, though. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. Best of luck this week, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.